Yeah.
Alrighty. Okay, it should be live right now. A little bit slow, but hi guys, Shani with Healing Elements. Wanted to welcome a special guest, Malcolm Nair with Guided Intelligence, and really excited to get the 21 Spiritual Question Series going. I'm very, very honored. Thank you so much for coming on. I definitely, I saw him on interviews. What I originally thought is his testimony on his near-death experience. And so, of course, that led him into forming, it's a life coach business that you have, correct? And it's something that, of course, is blended with spirituality in all its facets. So we're going to go ahead and do just a conversation back and forth. I have some questions based on a couple of questions based on the interviews that you have done. I know that we talked briefly in our messaging, and I thought it was very intriguing that you had said, wanted to, I'm wondering you asked me the question, what has been left out of the interviews of near-death experiencers? And I'm curious to ask you, is there anything in particular that you've left an interview, or perhaps you just thought that you haven't explored enough, or you feel like maybe if you've watched some other near-death experiencers, you feel as if needs to be talked about, or it just is
Yeah.
avoided in some case?
Absolutely everything. Just like before jumping on the call, all these little minute little things that we discussed, I didn't talk about. People don't ask me, and I get always finish an interview saying they're just a content creator. They're not going to dive in deeper. They're not going to ask me specific questions. They're not going to challenge me. When I talk about healing, we brush over it and go to the next question. It's like, okay, they like your answers, but sometimes my answers aren't good enough because I have more. There's always more. There's always more to dive into. There's always more to pick at. Like for example, healing and confrontation and integrity. There's seasons of grievances. You don't know, just because you left this realm, you entered the spiritual world. We think we're going to come back and be connected to source and be so in tune, but we don't understand that when we're in this realm, it's its own spiritual body. And
right? He's still a human being right here.
yeah, yeah. And it's so hard to maintain. So you need discipline. And if you fall off, you gotta, kick your butt into gear and be persistent, like continue the daily grind and the daily practice with every little thing. Sometimes I have to do my practices all over again. I have to weep, I have to sob, I have to cry, I have to go through my mirror talks, and sometimes I have to shame myself, guilt myself. I have to look at the fraudulence again. Just because I did my inner healings about fraudulence and identity and about character and self-image and self-love, it doesn't mean it's done once and you're good to go. You live your life and like, I have my self-character, I self-love. There's different seasons of self-love,
I agree.
grievances and pain and suffering and, realizations, and there's cycles and guilt, and there's so many things that people don't understand. That's why the majority of spiritual healers are the ones who have it the hardest, because they're on a constant journey. And that's why we look at it from the outside in, and we're like, oh well, they're at a what do you call it, at a resort, not a resort, they live up there in the mountains, they're in a temple, or they're in the Himalayas, and it's easier for them. They don't have to deal with this grind. They don't have to deal with this life. They don't have to deal with a kid coming and ruining their call, or they get to go on a quick video call, but there's peace around them. They don't have disturbances a lot, right? Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but these are challenges to bring up.
I wanted to ask you, I think that is interesting that you brought up something I just spoke about. A lot of healers or spiritual practitioners will talk about you cannot show any attention to fear. And I believe that you have to, of course, not ruminate on fear and have it as an encapsulating source that, is going to make decisions for you. However, I think it's pretty impossible. I was bringing up the example of if, you found out your child was kidnapped, or something of that nature, as much as you are on a spiritual journey, you're going to feel the fear. And I think if you oppose it, that's going to be suppressing energy and feelings and then, come up later. So how do you feel? You just mentioned that, the things that come up in cycles and phases that you still go through them. And I think that's beautiful. I always tell people, my clients, we are a work in progress no matter what guru tells you. I mean, I really feel like until we literally cross over for the final time, we're going to always be learning something, even as ascended as you would be. So I'm curious what your opinion is about fear and maybe grief after a death, things of that nature. I wanted to find out how you feel it fits in with your spiritual practicing.
Yeah, there's so many ways, and please dive in deeper after my answers come up. Challenge me, call me out, rebuttal it too, because then there's more loopholes to get into. But for example, there's so much to break down in that. Like, first of all, you have to, go through the grievance. You have to feel the pain. You have to also heal yourself. You have to embody it. You have to embrace and love and forgive and understand, hear, see, and feel yourself. Appreciate yourself. Understand yourself. There's a method and a process and an exercise I do for all that. But then there's also things that you could do where I've done some work where I would get these dreams after my family member passed away, and it was unfulfilled, like, and I didn't know how to end that cycle, that path. So
Okay.
sometimes you have to sit in a dream and go through the nightmares. Sometimes you'll get demonic nightmares. Sometimes you'll go
Have
through.
you? Have you gotten demonic nightmares before?
Oh, of course. I used to have this dream where I would go into, I would always end up looking for a house rental, like a house, and would always end up go into the basement, and there'd be this closet, and there'd be this like area, and you would feel and sense energies, because that was always my scarcity about having intuition and sense of people's homes and what types of energy people have in their homes.
Mhm.
And I would always sense something like a presence.
Yeah.
And I'm like, instead of running and leaving and going up the stairs and ending my dream and making it all nice, because I would have these dreams where lucid, where I
I
would,
was just going to say, it sounds like you're pretty lucid in it if you were able
yeah.
to.
So I'd be aware where I would decide, make decisions and choices, and just want to end. And it would keep coming up, keep coming up. And I would say, okay, you got to face this. So I faced it by letting it punch the door down, scratch, and I was sat in that fear, and it
Mm.
would come. And right when I thought it was going to attack me or kill me or hurt me, you let it happen.
Yeah.
And then I let it happen, and I couldn't handle it. It would be so, it would go in the living room or whatever, and I would end up ending the dream like that, and I'd say it's still not fulfilled. Then I would have the next dream where the same process would happen. It comes out, same process. Like, it keeps continuing.
Until you address it, right?
So
Until you
what is
fulfill it the
this?
way that it's supposed to be fulfilled. Did you ever get to a point where it was fulfilled?
Yes, good. I
Okay.
like it. I like how you getting to the point.
Okay. Thank you.
So I gave it a hug.
Oh my God. Isn't
Yeah.
that
So
beautiful?
I just sat through the fear, and I just went towards it, and I hugged it through compassion and
Oh,
unconditional love. And I saw it not for a demon, but for a lost soul.
beautiful.
Yeah.
You have a daughter, so have you seen The Last Dragon? That is a concept that is in that movie.
The
It's,
cartoon? Yes.
yeah, it's a cartoon Disney
Yeah,
that
yeah,
just
the
came out.
dragons. Yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
dragon with the water dragons.
Yeah.
I really thought that when you just said that, I got the chills because I really thought when I watched that movie, this is a good lesson because a lot of people, of course, are not going to want to hug the murderer of, you know what I mean? But it's like
Right.
do that is really what I believe is like the Christ
True
consciousness or the
redemption.
higher ascension, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So that
And
is wow.
that's
Powerful.
redemption, and that's how you redeem yourself, and you don't condemn others, right? Who are you to condemn others, right? But then you asked a lot of other things, like, you know, are, around your question, I mean, if you want to ask it again, there's more to
There's
be
only so much
answered.
to my questions, right? I think that I need to get better on that one. It's like shorten it down a little bit because then it gets me so excited to go on other trails. Like I already have another question about yes, condemnation about other healers and what I was just talking about fear. If you feel fear or if you address that at all, some healers or spiritual practitioners or people that
Yeah.
are they motivational speakers will say, "Oh, that is not for you're not ascending, you're on a level that I'm on," or whatever. It's like condemnation. How do you feel about condemnation? Does it have a place in this kind of work?
There's different levels to
Okay.
spiritual awareness and strength and grit and perseverance and motivation. And like there's going to be someone who mixes spirituality with motivation, and there's these guys that pump you up, come on, keep going, keep going. But you have to embrace all parts. You can't just be one sided, right? So you have to understand, otherwise you're just trying to put people on your level and you're not coming from the soul that they are.
So
So you have to be, embody so many different levels, so then you can serve one type of person and then the other type of person, because you're not trying to get someone to adapt to you. You're just guiding people, teaching
you're trying
them
to have
how
them
to.
find themselves. Yes.
Yeah, so I disagree with that. I just like, for example, Sadhguru, he doesn't tell anybody what to do or how to be. And, he just is, and he just straight up, and
He's righteous. I love him.
right.
Motorcycle riding, wonderful dude. A lot of people say it's controversial, but you know what? We all are.
Yeah.
So I love getting a little bit of pieces from all people, and I love that you brought up earlier. I don't know if we were before the call or not, but Joe Dispenza,
Yeah.
and I just really appreciate little things. You don't have to agree with everything that these people say, but it's beautiful the way that he is straightforward and he makes you think. I love when someone poses a question back to you when you are
Yeah.
asking something, makes you think and reflect.
And on that, I wanted to mention that I don't want people to think that when they listen to content, like for example, Dr. Joe Dispenza will talk about brain and heart coherence and love and healing, and you have to have this, and you have to do this, and you have to be in alignment. I don't want that to discourage anybody when they first go and watch any type of spirituality or healing to learn. Um, you know, when I was in the hospital, when I was on life support, when I died in 2010, I, you know, fractured my tibia, I collapsed my lung. I had a brachial plexus injury, spinal cord T1, C1. They couldn't even label it. They were like, oh, it might be C1 through C this and T1 through this. I was so damaged that I had specialists seeking specialists to find out what's going on with me. I was literally, I was not diagnosed as paralyzed, but when I woke up off life support, I was paralyzed on the right hemisphere of my body over
That was my dad,
75.
hexaplegic. Yeah. Okay.
And and the thing is, with healing, the way I healed and recovered, it wasn't through brain and heart coherence, because I was very negative.
Okay.
Right? So when people say like, you got to be positive and love and this to heal, and you got to be in alignment with this, but at the time of my healing, I wasn't.
Yeah.
What it was is,
Is it a strong will? What is that, a strong will? Because I do think that that is very, very, very intriguing about people who are given placebo pills. They might not be positive. They may be Hitler and they're being told that a pill is going to help them. They will either, what do you think? Is it willing themselves? Is it a strong mindset? Because you're right. I do want to tell you, I do agree with that. Because of the placebo and other things, there could be negative people and they will themselves to do it anyway. And they win the basketball game and they're, very negative and complaining and very not in a heart brain coherence type of
but
deal.
if
So
you're
yeah, I think
very
there can be careful.
logical and analytical, you can unwill yourself,
Yeah.
right? You can unwill yourself on a placebo. If someone tries to make you believe like this is gonna heal you, but you're very in tune with your awareness, and you don't trust something, there's something in you that you trust, and you don't trust something about doctors or someone who's saying you're going to heal, you can unwill yourself and even curse yourself through the surgery or through the plastic surgery. And so many things can go wrong, right? So for me, it was different. I just wanted to bring this up so you can ask me more of your own personal questions. So when I healed my lung, I felt it and I healed it. When
Okay.
I healed my fracture, I felt it and I healed it. On
What were
day
you
one,
thinking when you did that? Because obviously you weren't thinking, I love you, leg. I want you to heal. I love
right,
you. What were you thinking? Were you thinking you better heal now? What was the kind of conversation in your head?
I just said I'm going to heal because everybody told me I'm not going to heal.
Ah, okay.
All the doctors said this might take years. You might not get full recovery. You'll be over 75% damaged. My nerve damage and my muscle tearage were so beyond torn, and ligaments were so messed up that there were no specialist understood how I was healing,
Hmm.
because all they were doing was trying to figure out what was wrong with me.
And
They
you're,
had
yeah,
no time to say, you're going to heal, because they were still trying to figure out how can I find out what happened to him. It
yeah,
was such a case that they didn't know like
right?
I'm
Like, are you
telling you,
familiar with Eben Alexander, the gentleman who does the near-death testimonies? Eben Alexander, he was, a neurosurgeon himself, and then he had a near-death. And I just find it intriguing to me that what you're talking about pertains where he had a case which was like yours. It was undisclosed how he was healing. He was healing it himself, or he was a miracle type of healing. They still debate. People still want to debate that. Oh no, it had to be something scientific or something that we did. It's kind of like that ego mindset, right? I mean, and so I think that it's beautiful that you say that you were. Do you think it was like this when you were healing? It wasn't positive, you say. So do you think it was more like, no one's going to tell me that this can't happen. I want to prove you guys wrong, or was it a different kind of emotion?
Yeah, it was part of that, and you got to feel it too. You got to feel it untwine. So it was that, definitely. It was my ability to be. I was very. The word that I'm looking for was something that was called upon me for years by my stepmom, and people would call me defiant. You're very
Ah,
defiant. You're very defiant. And as a child growing up, being called a beggar born and defiant, and all the names that you can be called, I used that and I owned it. And I'm like, I'm gonna be defiant towards everybody. And I was defiant against even the most respected neurologist, the most respected scientist. And I can see through them. My intelligence can see through their limited intelligence, because what they studied decades and decades for is called limit.
mm-hmm. Yes,
Right. And I was beyond limits. So I was beyond their limitations of what they believe. Once you form a belief, then you're limited.
yeah, yes, I believe so. I like to keep everything open ended, even things that are sacred beliefs. And I think
Yeah.
it's neat that you just talked about something that I think falls into the category of beautifulness about not being stuck in a victim mentality. You said that things that people called you younger, maybe defiant, and something else that maybe could have to someone else been something that they play the victim role and say, because I was called defiant, I was not able to do ABC. I like that you said you owned what you were called, didn't have the victim mentality, and you used it, owning that quality, whether it was shadow or light in you, to do it. So
Your
that is,
enemies see the truth in you. People who call out the truth, it hurts the most. But I just, inside of me, I didn't want to let that be something that's going to limit my life or not allow me to do things, just because they called me uneducated, illiterate, dumb, homeless, bum, whatever. I embraced it all. Yes, I was homeless. Yes, they called me a bum. So what? I became one. you know. And they call me defiant. I was defiant, but you know you have to have an underlining belief that you're better, you
Yeah.
can do better. And that's what I did. You asked me, well, what did I do? I just visually looked at myself, because it helped that I had a out of body experience and an NDE. So I got to have my spirit travel and come in and out, and my spirit got to come out and in, take out my neck brace. So while I was on life support, my spirit was coming in and out to help me through surgeries. So I would say, you need to come back in, because if I don't take off this neck brace, I will choke and I won't be able to breathe. And it's not going to help me being on life support. So you got to get back into your body, take off the neck brace. And then I did that with so many different things, even through surgery. Okay, it's time to come back into your body. You're going for the tibia fracture surgery. So I would come back into my body for the surgery. And then I would leave the body, right? So, and then I would go to have my experience, and then I would visually see everything and have see conversations being said. I would be able to be there beside somebody having a whisper or a conversation, and then I'll travel and I'll go and see what my mom is saying and how she's feeling. And then I'll travel to a different country to find out who's receiving the phone call. So that helped me realize and to be able to guide people's intelligence and tell them, you have the ability to do what I've done. You don't have to go through the experience for me to teach you. Just do what I say and I can help you do it too. And I've done it for clients, I've done it for people, and
Do
that's
you
what I
teach
did.
people
I
then
seen
how?
things
Oh,
happen.
I was going to say, do you teach people then? Because I think that that's wise what you said about you stepping into your own power. And even while you were there on life support, you're guiding yourself to help you in the real physical world to manifest. And so I think it's so important when you get to a client or you tell a friend about co-creation. It's so imperative, because I think that we are so responsible of so much that we really truly don't realize that. So even in a situation like that, you are, not to say that it would have gone bad otherwise, we don't know, but you were literally taking care and manifesting your health. That is intriguing, even when you were on life support. So do you think that if you would not have had the near death experience, if you just would have blacked out and then came to, do you think you would have been as, I guess, defiant is what you said in healing? Do you think that or do you think that it added something to you,
it
having had that experience?
it enhanced what I already had.
Okay,
It
beautiful.
enhanced what I already had, because it would have weakened me if I let that define me. If I let that car accident and no experience happen to me define me, I would have been like, I don't know what, I would still be what is. I would still be the person that I was, just leading unfulfilled life, unknowing life. I didn't know what I was doing, but I always had the ability to be aware and in tune and understand, but I was still lost. I was tainted. What
Mm.
it did was make me realize that I'm a spirit, and made me realize that my spirit is tainted. People who say, "Oh, we're all born angelic, we're spiritual beings, we're gentle, we're fragile," but no, we wouldn't be in this life as students,
Mm.
as spiritual students, if we weren't tainted. Why would we keep being sent down to this realm if we didn't have something to learn? So we have to untaint ourselves from something, obviously.
That was my next question is about, and you just said come back down. So do you believe, I do believe in multidimensional existence and also past lives? And do you believe that we also carry, like you said, tainted, we are tainted when we come in because of the things that perhaps we did not figure out or go through in
Yeah.
other existence? I wanted to have
Yes.
you speak on how you feel about past life and multidimensional kind of existence.
Well, I didn't have a multi-dimensional experience where I got to witness that or travel beyond that, because I traveled only to and from the realms of my soul, where my soul came from, and other like-minded souls and angels and guardians. Um, and back, to and back. I didn't travel, interstellar and go different realms and stuff like that. But I do love all that and I research all that and I do believe in it and I know. But every spirit has their own journey, and every other species
Yes.
might have that experience, or some people probably have that ability or that experience to do all that. I didn't tap into that. That's something that I have not dabbled in or experienced personally.
But
But
intuitively, you believe that that could be the case or whatnot.
yeah, it is,
Okay.
because maybe that's what we all are. It's just my experience, what I had to endeavor and travel to and from to get my messages was
Mhm.
just that. I didn't have to go and see this aura and this light and this alien and this and that. Like, people who go through all that, they're still here challenged.
Mm.
I bet you anything, and this is not negative. People always take me being upfront and confrontational in a kind and gentle way as, oh, that was rude.
It's
You
not
shouldn't
offensive to
judge.
tell the truth and to say your opinion. I
Yeah,
know confrontation
exactly.
is skewed.
But you know this yourself, right? There are many angelic spiritual women and men that do their work and have all of their crystals and stuff, but they're the most traumatized people ever,
100%. 100%.
right?
And I
And
feel that
they're
sometimes they
lost.
hide it and they want to give you a prescription that they're not taking themselves. I had to learn that in
Exactly.
the beginning stages of my spiritual awakening. So
But
yes,
there's a lot of transparent ones too. But my point is not just calling and I'm not condemning, but I'm just saying the ones who cover up and present themselves as, that's the only thing me and you we're saying. Is we're not saying that they don't admit, they know that they have traumas and they're dealing and fixing and stuff, but then it's the truth. How transparent are you, right? What are you just showing? What content are you just putting out there, right?
yes, that is a good question, because I was going to ask you if you've gone through stages of that. I did in the beginning want to, as I was alluding to a little bit, I wanted to present myself in a certain way, and almost as if I was a newscaster. Like, I wanted to show certain things, so people would tell me, very, successful people in the content creating business would say, oh, get that Shanny testifies, like a vlog type thing, off of your regular healing site, because they're going to think you're crazy. You're telling them about experiences that you had when you had your friend almost get raped, or things that were very detailed and very personal to a human existence, right? And I said, after a while, when you come into your own, you just know. And I said, you know what, that's me, and that's the way in my style individually of expressing and teaching, by this is my experience, this is how I felt about it. So did you ever separate things like we're talking about? Like, did you ever specifically be discreet about things? Or okay.
So what you're saying is
I'm gonna get my
something.
battery. I'm listening. I'm right here. I'm gonna get my plug. I'm so sorry.
No,
It's
no
flat.
worries. So what you're saying is something along the lines of self-identity.
True.
So when people don't have self-identity and self-character and self-image, and they haven't done the work, they're doing that. They're falling victim to that falseness, that fraudulence. So they're just
Right.
presenting what they think they should be doing. They're unaware. But once they do the exercises and the self identity work, so when I did my self identity work and I did all this, I connected to my spirit, to my soul. And I didn't have control anymore. So people who are choosing what to put out there, they're lacking self-identity and they have a lot of control and insecurity, you
Yeah.
know, because an insecure person will only stick to the script,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So if you're not insecure, then you have no shame. And
Yeah.
and having no shame doesn't have to be bad, but being shameless is disrespectful, right? Shame and shameless are two different things, right?
100%. I was just going to ask you about that earlier, and it brings up Brene Brown. You were talking about something about shame and experiencing and going through emotions. Do you feel that her, or other people in particular, that teach you that shame is like the dirty word, and that's going to fix all your problems. You can't go through that. I think that it's perfect that you're saying shame and shameless are different. Just like saying I am terrified is different than saying this situation in Russia is terrifying.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
perfect. I love it.
That's what I mean. And yeah, that's very important, for people who are on a spiritual journey to really hone in on this, because it'll set them free. It'll open up so much. Like you were saying earlier, you're like, I'm so glad you said that, because now I feel comfortable. I can speak naturally. Like I can just say what I want, and I can bring up those things. I can challenge you now, where I don't have to just stick to the script, right? And that's what I tend to do, is like I set people free, right? I can allow people to find their authentic selves. And that's what you need to do, is do the self-identity work, self-image, character. It's all separate. It's knowing your character, your characteristics, your mannerisms.
Sometimes it's about confronting even your opinions and beliefs. Like I love having discussions on, like I have this weekly thing with another near-death experiencer, Brittany Workman, and I love her and I angle because we'll talk about, let's say, the Mandela effect or deja vu. And I love that we both start talking, and either of us will probably bounce back opposite opinions and then dive into why that could be, perhaps, or why that could be.
My opinion on that. So I dove into that thinking it was legitimate.
Okay.
And what the truth is, it's just fraudulence from the governments and stuff. What it is it's actually branding and the government, and hiding things and projects, and trying to put a veil across the eyes of mankind. It's so not that you're stupid or we're stupid. It's happening, and they're trying to dull the effects of your consciousness.
Yeah, make you feel second-guess yourself, right? Like you're second guessing, like, oh wait, I must be crazy or whatever. I know what you mean. The programming is real.
Yeah.
And the hidden secrets are real. I mean, I can go off on another if you ever want to back on, but I saw a UFO, so I know that they're hiding in the minimal sense a huge mountain-sized, UFO.
You don't have to see them to believe them. They're already working hand in hand. I mean, this is gonna be. That's what I'm saying. See, having shame and then being shameless is, I know my integrity, I know my identity, I know what and what not to say, and how to say it, and how much is too much, but people who think they know so much, and they're like, oh, this is what's happening. There's always a beyond that.
True. There's always, yes.
There's always more. And then those podcasters that don't choose to have certain guests on and aren't aware. Like, for example, there's Dr. Stephen Greer, and then there's that other doctor, that scientist that back engineered things on Netflix. There's another scientist
in the UFO community, or different.
Yeah. He worked.
But I probably know them.
He worked in Area 51.
Oh, Bob Lazar?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Bob Lazar and Greer, they have not done an interview together on a platform being challenged on Joe Rogan. So when people talk about back engineering, and then when you see the documentaries of Elon Musk and then taking SpaceX up, and then talking about different technologies, well, how come Bob Lazar is not sitting down with Elon Musk? Why aren't they talking about technology together?
Yeah.
Right? So it's all these contradictions and all these passageways and limitations and stuff. Man, just get together, get the job done, and do it. And stop making a podcast. You have 10 million, 20 million followers, but you have these guys on there. Why don't you have some of the guys on Gaia TV come on your show?
Ah, yes. I love that channel. I love that channel. Greg Braden, I don't know, obviously, if you watch Gaia, you're familiar. I like him because he reminds me of what you're talking about right now, this exploration of, timelines, and that if anybody says, I know what's going on and I know what's going to happen, the thing is, it doesn't depend on what you think or feel, or you can be seeing a future that is a different timeline, and the decisions, I believe, based on the collective can change that. So why be stuck on something and brainwash the rest of the community to feel that way. So I always,
Exactly.
I always feel that way, that it's open-minded is good,
Yeah, exactly. There's so much, like, yeah, this could just go deep and deep. Like we can talk about so many different levels of things, right?
I know, and I feel like I always get sidetracked. I just am an excitable person. That's also something I try to work on. But about the shame and shameless, I just found it fascinating that you had brought that up earlier. And I always think about the fact that I'm probably one of the only people that at least I talk to when I watch Brene Brown. I appreciate her beautiful eloquence and the way that she is a motivational speaker, but I feel as if she puts a tone on that emotion in particular, shame, and it really makes it actually to be. I said to my friend one time, it's as if she's making us feeling shameful for feeling shameful, and I do not mean to put her in a bad light at all. You know what I mean? I'm just saying I think that it's great that you contradict things because I have to do
Yes.
that in the spiritual community, especially. I can't say
Even
they're all
parenting. Yeah.
this. I believe in just that.
Exactly. Even there's people that come on Mind Valley that talk about the parenting, that they're spiritual beings and you got to let them explore and be on this journey. I contradict that because if you're aware, for example, I had my experience, I'm aware of all those things. How can I just follow that woman that's a coach on parenting to just let your kid be a spiritual being, but they're tainted. They're, in my opinion, they're tainted. They're unaware of their own guidance and their soul's journey, and it's not going to tap in the time frame that it should, because the level of maturity needs to set in before they start to comprehend, and their cortex and everything needs to align for them to make different choices, for that to happen, the exploration properly to happen. So shouldn't you rather guide your children?
I was just going to ask you, is Mind Valley a program of like maybe the hippie mindset in which they don't think any guidance is necessary, just let them be free as the wind, or is it on Gaia?
No, there's some guests on there actually that are very good at guidance and that teach about wisdom and stuff
Is
like
it a
that. Like,
podcast? I've never heard
sorry,
of that.
sorry.
Is it a podcast? I've never heard of Mind Valley. Is it a YouTube creator?
Oh, Mind Valley is amazing.
Oh,
He's very inspiring. I love Vishen Lakiani. He's amazing guy.
awesome.
And by all means, no, it's not just about free. He has a lot of structure. He's very smart, very intelligent. But what I'm trying to say is certain guests, particular
Oh,
guests, will be the expert in their field. And I watched one on parenting, and
okay.
I don't see that to be true. You shouldn't just let your kids explore or whatnot. If you can let a kid explore and he's walking and he's mindless and he doesn't know he's excited, shouldn't you pull him before that truck hits him, or you want to just let him explore? Like and then you pull him and then you guide him, you teach him, you show him consequences, you let him get a little bit hurt, maybe pull him, let his shoulder get banged, and then you say, oh my God, you see, if I didn't pull you, you wouldn't have known that. So then you advance their intelligence. So that's what I do to my children.
Okay.
There's
That's why they
this.
call them guidance counselors, man. They're the most important person, in my opinion. I worked at the school district for 10 years. They're called guidance counselors, and they're the ones that the kids go to the most because they feel as if, okay, you're going to guide me. I need some guidance. You know what I mean? And I mean, I feel that there is something to be said with letting your kids have their own opinions and choices and things of that nature, but guiding them, like you said, I feel is pivotal. Do you ever think that there is too much guidance or overbearing or TMI, too much information that you could give to your child?
No, I allow us to debate,
Good.
contradict. I want my kids to call me out on my bullshit. I want them to call me out on something I did. I want transparency. I want them to be able to know that they have freedom of choice and will. They can make their decisions. But um, I want them to feel, and my wife was great at explaining this to me too. She's like, because you can tell your kid what to do, but they're still going to do what they got to do.
So true.
But if you say, you give them the options, you give them all the options, you lay it out, you educate them, and you say, the decision is yours. I trust you. You have freedom of choice.
But this is the consequence if you do this. This is what happens when you do this, and maybe let them kind of piece it together. Is
Yeah.
that what you mean? Okay.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So you could do that, and don't get mad. Like, there's people that look at me grinding fresh coffee beans, making a cup of joe for my kids, and they put shame on that, but it's okay to have your pantry full of glucose and carbohydrates and junk.
And some McDonald's, the drive-through.
Yeah, and right?
Yeah.
So there's so many little things back and forth that people aren't understanding. They're blind.
Yes.
There's so
And
many blind people.
And do you think it's the ego mindset that makes people want to, instead of debating and having conflict and confrontation that's healthy, do you think it's their ego mindset, or what do you think that is, where people just want to cast stones, maybe in the political area or the parenting area or the spiritual community? Oh, they're not woke enough, or they have this problem, they're a drunk driver, me, who says it a TMI on my channel, and they say, oh, that is, what do you think it is with people who don't want to
Yeah.
healthy discuss? You know what I mean? They just want to, throw stones, cast stones.
And it's full ego, full fraudulence, full not being able to surrender. It's
Yeah.
their own paradigms that they have not been able to fulfill or fix. Their mindset is closed. This is like with parents today, like, the baby boomers, like my parents, they're still so uptight that they are not willing to do the inner work and become vulnerable to face it and endeavor the truths and go through the walk and the talks of changing and persevering and becoming a new you and a new, changing your world, quantifying your experience here on planet Earth. People are so afraid to quantify their experience and change. Change is important. And if they are not willing to change, that's the constructs they're defining themselves on. They're blocking their minds, they're shutting themselves down, they won't be able to heal. So if they fracture themselves down the road with that mindset, they're not going to be able to heal it, because they already had that mindset. Well, I'm not going to listen to my son, he's trying to confront me, he's telling me to change. Well, why can't you have a comfortable, civil, decent conversation instead of feeling uptight and blocking yourself and closing yourself off?
And even take the time to find out why they feel that you should make a change or whatnot. And I think vulnerability is the opposite of ego. I myself love it, and I know I can tell by what you're saying. Is that a strong theme in your practice of being vulnerable? Because I think that is what got rid of, or is still work in progress, my ego mindset. Being more vulnerable helps me with that.
Yes. I have to be vulnerable, my whole life. When I was, holding my vulnerability and trying to put a front and be strong, I was weakening myself, and I wasn't able to confront and heal myself. So being vulnerable will allow you to forgive. It'll allow you to look at people differently without your bias. It'll allow you to see them for what they truly are. But it's easier said than done. Especially with your own household, your own family.
That's even more hard, right? So personal and hard to get. Yep.
Yeah. It's easier to do outside of yourself, but a lot of people find that difficult because they're so good at keeping their home nice and nice and good, knit and tit or whatever. But they allow outside circumstances to dictate how they feel inside, where I've healed that. I'm healing, well, I'm continuously growing. But when it comes to inner, that's where you need to really become vulnerable.
Were you vulnerable right after your near-death experience to talk about it? I was very curious to ask you that kind of question. Like, if you ever had a kickback or fear of judgment, or were you ready to be vulnerable right after it happened and to be just like, hey, this is what happened to me?
No, I wasn't fearful at all. Okay. I was ready to jump up and go on a mic and tell everybody in the hospital. I can shame the hospital. I could shame the government if I chose to do it. But what I did was I just noticed that it was not my space to do it when everybody was saying, shh, don't do that. Don't talk like that. And the doctor was coming and being all doctorish and saying, well, I'm a neurosurgeon, I know. Well, I'm a specialist with nerve damage, I know. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't suppress it, but I was more aware of the industry. I
Of
was
the
more,
oppression of it. So you're just like, I'm not going to give it my time now because I can tell
yeah.
the attitude. It wasn't that you were fearful for them thinking about you. Is that what you mean?
No, I wasn't fearful of them thinking of me or me telling them the truth or me teaching them. I was actually sometimes inspiring them, like some of the doctors and specialists. They were listening to me speak about my healing, and they were taking notes, and they were recommending specific specialists to me to be their poster child, and have a lot of doctors come and follow me around and learn from my experience. So I was teaching them and talking this crazy stuff about healing and what I'm doing. And I would come like the next week for my next appointment, and I'd be more recovered. And they were just in awe. He was like, "This is not supposed to happen."
Yeah.
Nobody was able to take accountability and ownership of my healing because I was doing it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it doesn't it baffle the mind that these are the same professionals who know that placebo effect works, that if you believe something, it'll happen. And I just find it to be odd that many people who have near-death experiences say that when they heal miraculously and tell the people that they're working with angels or whatever the case may be, the doctor's like, that's impossible. But meanwhile, the doctors know that trials go on every day at a pharmaceutical company with placebo, and people have the placebo effect. So it just intrigues me, and I'm wondering, why do you think? Do you have any indication why you think that? Is it an insecure thing, or your past as a child where people, it's a very common thing, they'll have a near-death experience and they try to reach out to their partner or the doctor and they get shot down, and then they don't speak about it for many, many years because they feel as if that is it a fear of judgment, maybe, as what I kind of,
No, I think they have not release their blockages,
uh,
their childhood, their parents or their grandparents or the society and the government weighing you down. Like, so many people hold you down from speaking.
the
It's the
stigma.
biases, I think that's what it is. And they're ashamed of being their authentic self. They're ashamed of being the spirit that they truly are until they do their research. They spend another 30 years researching to fulfill the gap of being good enough. And
Yeah.
that's why they come up with documentaries now, and they're in their 50s, 60s. And it's like, well, you could have, well, actually, there's some that do that. And then there's some that have opened up uh, and been working in that field for decades, right? So there's some and some don't, right? But I believe that's what it is people need time. People need a lot of time to be able to feel good enough, right?
Yeah, that was what it was for me, and I didn't have a near-death experience. But just even recently, the last year, I've been braver and known that what you just said is true. That it was my own healing I didn't do,
Yeah.
and fear of being judged like I was as a kid or whatever for being chubby, because I was hesitant to put on cool things that I'd have put on about this dream during my spiritual awakening, this 40-day dream of Jesus, and I wasn't even religious, and he was basically telling me I'm not a religious cat. I'm like a good hippie. I was afraid of relaying the past life regression and things like that, because I thought the same thing. I thought, oh, I'm not good enough, because if I say this, I'm not going to be good enough for them anymore. And so I had
Mm.
to revisit that shadow work and say, you know what that is? That's not being your authentic self. You need to lay it on the line, be truthful, look the camera in the eye. And then it's really neat, because I love then when you get the response for people who really appreciate that and being like, dude, I was right about to jump off on my expression, but I was feeling too vulnerable and that it would be too scary to do. So I appreciate that you said that, because it was a combination of fear of judgment based on the programming from the stigma of the whole government, the
Yeah.
society that teaches you, no, you can't say that. That's woo woo. And, some other things too. So I
That's
applaud you for not having any hesitation.
that's I appreciate that. And that's why I don't believe in, when people say you need a certificate or you need a license or you need to be this or you need to go study to be the who are, I do work that psychologists can't do. I do the work that those psychologists that actually do the deep work. But if people see that and say, well, you're not a psychologist, how could you do it? Well, that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I agree.
I have sat in front of psychologists and I've been able to manipulate them.
I think that's interesting you said that, because I feel like the spirit community and the psychologist, they both have something there. But I think if you blended it together and really
Yes.
stayed an open perspective, because I have problems with the right and the left on both of those subjects. And like you said, yes, you can tell them whatever you want, probably as I was in the past, to get a Xanax pill. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, that means that they're not in the know. If they were using their five
Exactly.
senses, they would know what's up, that I was trying to do it. You know what I mean? So
So that's why street smarts, lack of education is always good,
true.
because when you're overly educated, you're
In a
confined,
box.
you're stuck, you're in a box. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you said that. So thanks for that.
for
Have
sure.
you had any kind of kickback that has bothered you? Let's say on an interview, or maybe telling someone who is related to you or anything. Have you ever had anybody say a response to you that actually bothered you, no matter what it was? If it was positive, maybe anything that kind of really got under your skin for some reason.
Well, I've gone through so much that I don't think it would, and I have
Okay.
something coming up where it's going to shed a lot of light on a big, dark side.
Okay.
Um, Give me one sec. Annie, can you go upstairs, sweetheart? Please? Because you know how daddy's so in tune with his thoughts and stuff, and I get distracted when I hear a sound, I lose my train of thought. I need connection. Okay? Thank you.
You know, that's so kind. I love to see you talk like that, explaining to kids rather than commanding. You're
Yeah,
directing rather than commanding, and I think that that's a beautiful thing.
I do it when they're not when they are aware of what they're doing on purpose, then I
Of course,
command.
of
So if
course,
they're
yeah.
if they're like running around and doing something on purpose, they know what they're doing, then I'm like, go, right?
You know what's up, though. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But if they're not, they need education, then I can't do that, because that's what my parents did. They suppressed me, they shut me down, they belittled me, they stepped on me, they called me so many names. And it's not fair to grow up into your adult years only to realize, when I could have realized at a younger age with the proper guidance, that I was missing. So why should I allow them to get bashed down just to go through the years? I rather inform them, educate them, guide them, and teach them, and discipline them, and command them and correct them, all now, so they get it now. you know
I'm always rooting for them to put in a early class, not woo woo or about spirituality, but to put in meditation or yoga, and also the power. We can even just call it a mind over matter, the power of using your thoughts and intention, because that's not really religious. I think that they should have something in school to because to combat what kids may be experiencing at home, because a lot of people will just sink in and, like you said, wait so many years, sadly, until they meet a person or have an experience that breaks that open. Right? I feel that that would help, you know.
Totally. So your question was, what was your question again?
Oh my gosh, what last one was I on?
Before I
Maybe
uh,
about what is, has anybody ever given you any response about your situation that you have been either offended or got like triggered by?
Yeah, before, when I wasn't prepared, I joined a community, a local positive community, thinking it was a supportive group. And I posted some positivity, but my approach was wrong, where I should have approached it how I would today, with just doing my thing, not casting any judgment. What I did was I commented on the negativity. And of course, when you comment on the negativity, there's going to be more negativity.
Yeah.
So I
I've done
got
that before, you know, just
I
because
got booed. Yeah, I got booted and kicked out of the group and sworn and cussed at. So that kind of affected me, but it was my own wrongdoing. So it's a cause and effect.
But would you have done
You
anything different looking back? What would you have done? What would you have put on that post or left out that would be different now?
Nothing. I can only change the present moment and what
Yeah.
I'm doing now. I wouldn't change anything from the past, because that's what created me, right?
Yeah. But if you were
Yeah.
in a group now, would you not put out that sort of post because it
Oh,
kind
I never do now. It's all about just observing, noticing, influencing, guiding, and teaching. It's not about you're being negative, don't post like this, you know, that will touch the ego. So you have to cater it, and you gotta, I believe in catering the ego, loving the ego, and paying mind to the ego, because our egos get so suppressed that it's not heard, felt, or seen. And the way to heal ourselves is by loving our egos, because when we pay attention to our egos, it's a part of our mind, and our spiritual mind will be able to recover so much. You know, like if you're going through overwhelming feelings and you're not paying mind to it, you're just like, I'm depressed, I'm stressed, I'm having anxiety right now, and you just heal it, try to deal with it, you still have that ego, because you have not looked inside and said, how do I feel right now?
So you make friends with your ego. Like I always say, make friends with that feeling, make friends with the fear right then, so that it can process and it won't be stuck here in a blockage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you say to make friends with it then, your ego.
No, yeah, more
Or
or
acknowledge.
less acknowledge and understand, not make friends with it, because you
Okay.
don't want to be friends with the old you,
Yeah, okay.
right?
Frenemies, maybe frenemies.
You don't want to be friends, you don't want to be too attached, because then you can always go back to your comfort zone quicker,
So true. So
right?
true.
So
Yep.
that's the only reason why I would say you don't want to get too close. You know, people
Yep.
say keep your enemies closer and keep your friends close, but you this is the only way that I say don't do that, because you don't want to be um, you want to create a new you, create a
Yeah, and
new
if you make friends with it,
reality.
you're going to be comfortable, like you said, to go back. Because I've been doing that. I was on like a 9-month yoga every day. I lost like 60 pounds, and then my cousin's husband passed away on the 25th. And what I did is I made friends with the old me that said it's okay to stop doing yoga and to emotionally eat. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And so for about 6 weeks, and I'm just getting back on the ball, I said, you know what? You cannot make friends with that old you. That is the old paradigm. That is the old cycle. Let's go. Let's change it. And so I think that that helped me, what you just said, to realize that yes, when you accept the old you and you give it some, it's okay, you did that because you were in the old, it literally, you can adjust and take that back and own it for a minute, you know what I mean? And I don't think that, for me, that's not healthy.
Another word of advice for some practitioners out there in the world: one mistake that I made in the past was someone was in dire need, and they really needed help.
Okay.
And what they did was they were looking in from their perspective, and they were judging, because they wanted healing for one of their children. And what they did was they were very much in control of who and how, because they've gone through the deep end of counseling and therapy and psychologists and specialists. So they were very controlling and dictating the children's lives. So I end up doing an in-home consultation to help, because it was the right fit. But she was judgy and very controlling and wanted to be sitting in. I couldn't have a one-on-one with the daughter, and it was very controlled. And one thing that I did was I thought it was going to be okay to break the comfort zone and become friends. So when you become friends and you let your guard down from being professional, and you just you think you're trying to be comfortable for her, they're actually putting more judgment in onto you. So what I did was she offered me a drink, an alcoholic beverage. And you should, it's okay sometimes. Like now, if someone offered me a glass of wine in the evening, I can hold my composure. It's not about holding my composure, but it's don't become too close. So I would still have my wine, but I would still maintain my mindset. I won't get too close with her friendship. So what happened was more judge was casted, right? More judgment was casted onto me.
I totally get you. I still get that, and I needed to hear that because I'm just now starting to separate that, and I had that experience, identically to what you said because I told too much information that I don't really,
Yeah.
some real deep stuff that you only tell your psychologist or your partner. And then, of course, it was thrown back in my face because, whatever it is. So I think that that is a beautiful message to, in this line of work, I think that it is very difficult to do because it's a compassionate, a loving thing. But I love what you said because I've been really journaling about that lately about, look, you could be kind and everything, but then the other thing comes in where you'll be friends and you've given them a reading or counseled them as your client, and then they'll, in a pickle, they'll call you because they're your friend, and they'll, for 3 hours, you're going to dive in and give them a professional reading, basically. And so if you make that all of your clients your friends, then you truly can't do this for a living. And so I've been thinking a lot about that in that regard too. So I don't know if you can
Right.
speak on that. But that's what happened, is that you basically lost a client, or maybe because you got too close, what I have done.
Yeah, I didn't get too close. It was just that I
The
was
judge.
saying being transparent instead of holding that professional thing that I usually do. I was just like upfront about it. I was like, so what do you think is the problem? Like I ask upfront, like I like if, but it's usually happens when my clients come here, they meet me, and it's one on one, not with their mom and dad around, right? So the mom was around, and they felt uncomfortable me directly asking the daughter, "What do you think is going on? What's wrong?" And they shut down, and she got all like, "You don't ask a girl why she feels she wants to commit suicide, you know?"
That's probably why she felt that way, because she wasn't able to form her own opinions and
Yeah,
say it out loud.
yeah. But so what I could do now is be like, I need to just speak with her alone. And, usually we need our space. And then I would talk to her privately. Where in front of the mom enabled it, showed that action behavior, and showed it was not okay. And that triggers onto the daughters. And then the daughters see it as not okay as well.
Follow
And
it.
then,
Yeah.
yeah, that causes a ricochet effect. And then now the mom has an image, but the image is based on her own ego and her own fraudulence, and not the truth, because it is not the truth that you can talk and ask. And because I know my boundaries, I've studied, I have all those certificates, I've researched, I understand the fine line between pushing and releasing, right? And because I've talked to many people. But for mothers out there, don't enable your children, set them free a little bit, because if you're always there, you're just controlling, you're building the next generation based on that. What do you think she's going to mirror? She's going to be the same mother.
Yeah.
And it's okay, but I'm not judging, but
Speaking of that,
it's,
sweetie, I'm so sorry. Now it's my turn. There's a child knocking on my door. I'm
yeah,
so sorry.
go
That's why
ahead.
I said organic. Which child is it? Let's see. And what do they want? I'm online. Oh, hi, buddy. It's my son. He probably wants to come in, and you have no underwears or socks or something. We're on live. You can go behind me if you want. I'm on a call. Anyway, sorry about that. Like
Yeah,
my kids are teenagers. What are you doing? Come on in
that's
here.
fine.
He's organic. He's my little Leo. He's a good boy. He's my only son. Right there. He's
Yeah,
peeking
yeah,
in.
that's all good.
What, did you knock on the door for no reason? No, he's like all shy to go past the camera. Anyways,
Yeah.
sorry about that, everybody,
So,
and sorry,
but
Malcolm.
you understand what I'm saying, right?
Yes, I do. I
There's
do
no
understand.
judgment, there's no being rude, there's no negativity. And I hope the women who know that they do this, and the men, understand it and just kind of back off. Is there a comment? What was that? Live
No,
viewing
I just
comments?
flipped the phone because I was kind of having to squish ever since I
Oh,
put my
okay.
battery in. It's like the cord is underneath, so I'm having to reposition my phone.
As long as you
Um,
understand what I'm saying,
I
that's all
do.
that matters.
I do, and I think that is so full faceted. I'm fascinated by all of the things that entails. I'm fascinated about parenting and how we affect our children, because I've been really open with myself and critique myself about what I did. I was a helicopter parent for a long time, not letting them explore on their own when I thought it was dangerous, and that came back to haunt me later on when I felt that
Yes,
they needed help, and then they're like, "What do I do?" So there's a lot of things that. Oh, there
absolutely.
you go, bud. That go into that. And I think also what you said was intriguing about how now the easy solution is the discernment, knowing who to say what in front of, what to, kind of feel out. And I think that that's a blend, probably, if you could answer that, of being, like you said, certificated, like logical, but then also intuitive to kind of pick up that vibe that you needed to, probably address it or whatnot. Bye, baby. Are you going to work? Okay.
It's
Bye, bye.
like people taking your kindness for weakness. You put your best foot forward and it's all trust and love, but you don't forget why you're there. You're the leader, you're the professional, you're there to heal a broken family. So why are you putting so much faith and trust in someone who's just offering you a drink?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that there is a fine line between mixing business with pleasure? I'm just curious about your opinion. Do you have any friends that began as a client?
So I now don't want to do it too much because clients get close,
Yeah.
they get mixed feelings and mixed signals. I had one guy calling me his friend, and then calling me, he's like my son, and then calling me daddy, and
Oh,
but he had bipolar and schizophrenia, and he had anger issues and negative issues and ego issues. So he was not even sure of himself. He was seeking guidance and wisdom, but he didn't have connection from his own parents. He was abusing his own parents.
yeah,
So
that's very common with bipolar. Yeah, my brother-in-law,
it was like back and forth, and I allowed him to see me as a figure, a friend figure, a trustworthy person, but it backfired where he felt he could treat me like he treats his own parents. So
No.
he'd be like, "What the fuck do you know? Fuck
How do you
you."
how do you handle that? This is a good, like, for me to combat. I want to know how do you handle that in that situation? How did you?
Professionally,
Okay.
I handled it with respect, and I said, I'm not going to tolerate that language. That this is going to be it. That's it, man. You're going to lose me. I'm giving you so many chances. All I've been was kind and generous with you, and now you're crossing the line. Like, it's all good. I have no attachment to you. You could swear at me 10 more times. I'm not going to get mad. You're
Yeah, yeah.
you're only affecting yourself, and you're going to lose me as a coach. And then he apologized and started crying and crying and saying sorry, and I just had to cut ties. Sometimes you have to cut cords, and
Yes.
you can't allow it back in. You have to cut cords, even with your own parents. Like, I allowed my own mother to come back in, and I'm realizing, if I can't allow my integrity to get dismissed by someone else's lack of intelligence to grow, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm not going to lessen my integrity to be like, "Oh, it's okay. You are how you are. It's okay to be that way in front of me," and me
Yeah.
to zip it up. So it's better to cut cords, even if they're your own blood, even if they're own family.
And
And,
people
and,
take that as a hateful thing, but that is not. It's basically just removing yourself from the energy because you've tried to address it in an appropriate way. You know what I mean? I
right.
mean,
Even if you do, and like I did, and it doesn't, or if you do it in a strong way and it doesn't, if no methods work, just don't feel guilty. Just don't keep trying. Sometimes you have to cut cords.
do you believe
Cutting
in the
cords
gray
is
rock?
best.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
The psychologist, are you familiar with the term gray rock? It's
Gray rock.
basically gray rock. It's where you, let's say you were in a situation and it was toxic and you can't, or there's no ability for you to cut and run, or you choose to still keep that relationship because you want kids to see grandma or whatever. It
You
is
could.
where you basically go gray rock and don't give them their attention, that narcissistic feed or abuse. You don't give them the attention. You kind of withdraw, but still have a dealing with them. Do you believe that that kind of concept could work?
It depends. There's so many perspectives. Like, for me, I have a lot of love, a lot of energy, and a lot of feelings and expectations, right? So if I'm giving love, you expect love back, right? If you are not,
Yeah, reciprocating.
if you're not receiving, then it turns into emotion. Then you have to call out the truth, right? With kindness, right? You say, I don't appreciate this, don't do this. But if it's not received well, so there's so many different
Variables.
personalities.
Yeah.
There's so many
Yes.
ways to answer it, but what I would say is, you just let them be the best grandma. You let them do what they got to do, and you don't put in too much emotion,
Okay.
expectations. You just let it
Yeah.
go,
That's like great
and
luck. Yeah. Okay.
you exactly. So just kind of do that, and don't make the mistake like I have with my family, is where you give in,
Yes.
and you forgive too quick,
And
and
you're
you
right
just
back.
let it up, you let your guard go, and everything comes back because they have not done the inner work and they have not changed, and it affects you, you
So by
know.
you doing that, do you think that you have had issues with keeping up your boundaries based on love?
um can you ask the question differently again?
Yeah. Okay. So whenever you've maybe gotten into the pattern of forgiving too quickly and letting someone back in, maybe family or whatnot, that would be, I guess, technically, I'm assuming, not trying to offend, but maybe that would be a boundary that you then let down because
Mhm.
you kept up the boundaries for a reason, obviously. So when you let down your boundaries, do you think you are doing that out of love, or do you think that it is a people pleasing mechanism, or does that make sense the way I framed the question?
No, what it is trying to let go of something that you think is truly let go. Like, if what nothing was let go, it was still there. So
Okay.
letting go is difficult. It's easier to forgive and let go. If say you have trauma in your family, right? And you've done your release work, your forgiveness work, and you let go from afar, right? And you truly, you don't condemn, you don't judge. That's good. But from afar, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you invite it back. You don't have to invite it back and challenge yourself to
Mm.
be that, around that toxic, fakeness.
Yeah, that's genius what you just said, because I've
Yeah.
done that before. You challenge yourself. You say, you know what, I can go in the ring of fire now because I have these skills. And sometimes that brings up the same thing, like you said.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to. Like, if you have a monk and a guru and, like, all these shamans, they would also lose their shit if they had kids running around and making mistakes. They use discipline. They're strict. They know their stuff, right? So that's why they're probably away from it all, right?
Yeah.
But, so they're not going to go into the ring of fire. Like, they need their peace, their zen. They're not, in the heat of it all the time, right?
Yeah.
So it's different, right, for everybody. Their advice is great for if you're pursuing their path. But how do you live in peace and harmony in the midst of turmoil, pain, and suffering? Right? How do you maintain that level head? Sometimes you have to cut cords, hold boundaries. Sometimes you have to hold expectations, right? And those
Yeah.
limits. And you have to
Well,
make
I'll
sure.
challenge you. I'm doing my homework now. How do you feel if somebody was to tell you as a healer, yes, but that goes against the principle of unconditional love?
Right.
I think it's loving to do those things because you're loving yourself and teaching them love by loving from afar, because you can still love them even though you cut and run, is my opinion. But
So
I'm interested to hear yours.
a great practice that, you know, you learn a lot from your significant other.
Oh,
You
yeah.
learn a lot from women in general. Women are very strong and very smart. So my woman told me, you know, and it's admirable to see a woman do that, to be around someone who has tendencies, failures, wrongs, and mistakes, and still be able to be around as the mature one, and as the leader, and as the person who knows how to answer, respond. So my advice is, what a woman gives to me is, just keep trying your best, keep being strong, keep being around, and just bite your tongue or hold it and be the wiser. Be the wiser, because what it's going to do, it's not going to lessen your integrity. It will strengthen you to be more holistic, more stronger, more adaptive to more harder people in your life that you're going to face, right? So if you can't do it, with your own mother or father in the midst of it, then you can't do it at all. So it's my challenge to everybody and to myself to keep trying to change. Keep just trying, keep trying. Sometimes it's going back on cutting cords, but if you have no choice, like you said, and you're in the household, I personally have taught clients how to not cut cords. Because I had a client say, well, it's easier said than done. I live with my mom, right? I live with my mom, and I just can't do this. And I taught her how to live in harmony and how to manifest a fruitful relationship. And after working with her, she was messaging me even throughout our coaching. My God, me and my mom, we're going out for dinner. We have the best relationship. We're opening up with each other. I'm healing my inner child. She's healing her inner child. Like, so much has changed. She's respecting my boundaries. And I'm like, right? Well, we got to practice what we preach. We got to do it for ourselves, right?
The change you want to see. So that's perfect proof that by you being her mentor, she was able to change something, work on those inner child, and then it spread, and you can see the effects around her. Not that the mother was not responsible for things, but I like that you said that, because I do think that we have a lot of responsibility to, what's going on around us.
Absolutely. You can't teach what you have not done yourself.
Amen.
Right? Yeah.
I agree.
So it could be fraudulent, right? So you got to keep up, keep willing to do the fight, keep willing to change, keep enjoying this life. Be thankful for the grievances, be thankful for the hardship, be thankful for the week of depression, be thankful for another day. And
what would you say to somebody who just lost somebody and who hasn't had a near-death experience, and they are saying to you that they are miserable and depressed and they don't have any reason to enjoy life anymore? What would you say to them?
You eventually have to understand and endure, go through your time of grievance, but how long you stay there is what matters. But I would say is like, you have to come to a point of acceptance and understanding that they are a spiritual being. That was their journey, and they're going to fulfill it, their own destiny. They're going to understand that, that was their life lived, and they had to overcome it. So you have to embrace the time you had with them and allow them to love. You have to love them for leaving. You have to love them because they're going to stay stuck. They're going to feel hurt if you're grieving. You got to give some type of release. You have to release.
Have you lost anybody after your near-death experience? And was it a different experience if you had someone that you lost before your near-death experience? Have you lost anyone close to you?
Yeah, my grandfather and my cousin, my second cousin, my first cousin. So my mom's sister's son and my dad's brother's son. And we were very tight, very close. And it was different. It was difficult. Just a little bit, going through the feelings and stuff. But it was a shock for me, more of a disbelief.
Yeah.
And it was like suddenly we were there yesterday, and then I'm at home sleeping. I wake up and I get a phone call. He's dead.
Yeah.
Right.
The shock is trauma. I agree with that. It's different than someone preparing, like my dad with cancer, or my cousin's husband that just died of COVID from the blood clot, like in January. We were talking about this yesterday, my cousin and I, how the shock, I think, does add an element of trauma, I think. You know what I mean?
Right. But at the same time, it was easier than going through the knowing of someone passing, because that can also be a lot of attachment, because they went through the knowing of my grandfather passing with a brain tumor, and they were there with him, watching him go through the dementia, going through the loss of memory, loss of recognizing people, weakening,
that's prolonged trauma right there. Yeah. So nothing is better than the other. Yeah, I agree.
Till his last breath, and it's still a loss. It's not more of an acceptance, it's more of a man, like, but it can work both ways depending on the people, depending
I
on the person and their awareness and their understanding, and and their mindset and stuff like that. There's so many ways, like, people don't touch on they just think there's one specialist has one answer. I always leave it like, well, there's so many concepts, there's so many mindsets, there's so many belief systems, there's so many ideas, right?
That's why it's my favorite to pick and choose, cherry pick what I get from each one. I don't say, oh, I don't agree with you, so I have to go on to the next one. I really want to get a big spectrum. And that's what I do with spiritual practices like religions. I'm not a set religion. I think that every single one of a spiritual practice has something that I can benefit from.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
I guess I think that I will let you wrap up. I can't believe I feel like I've been on for 5 minutes, but I think that it's been an hour and a half. And I just feel like I would love for you to come back. If you're interested, I will send you an email. I think that you definitely sparked a lot of things for me personally. I know a lot of people who hopefully will watch this as well. I was going to ask you the last question is, were you able, or have you been able to, on that note of losing someone and then knowing what you know now from having your near-death experience, were you able to comfort anybody around you that didn't have that experience? Were you able to use that in that loving form?
Yeah, my partner, her cousin brother
Oh.
passed away, and she had a best friend also, back, I think about 9, 10 years ago, passed away. And it was before my near death and after my near death. And it's just holding that space of understanding and feeling it too. You can't, just because you're aware and how to release, and it doesn't mean you put that on somebody else and you say, well, just get over it, it's all good,
I
they're in
love
a happy place. You have to also know that it's not just what spiritual people say, oh, embrace and love and celebrate the death. Yes, but you also have to grieve the physical realm,
Mhm.
right? We were physical together, right? We went on trips and holidays, and we had all this physical. We have
So
to go through.
validating her experience and holding the space for her, you think, is the key, right?
Yeah,
I think that's beautiful because a lot of people, as you probably know, don't give people the time of day to express, and they can gaslight and say, no, 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 you just have to get over it or whatever. So I think that part of a great healer, and I can see that in you, is holding the space for whatever, even if you don't agree with what they're feeling, you're holding this space because they are healing when they are being able to openly express it, is my take. You know what I mean? So
yeah, totally. Maybe I think we just touched on, like, just the surface,
yes,
but
man,
this could be a 3 hours. I mean,
I know.
um,
I
but
apologize for my shortcomings of talking over people and getting so excited with the topics. I kind of spur in different directions. So I appreciate that. I know you're more, very thoughtful as far as flow, but I just really want to tell you that you have invoked a lot of real deep thought provoking subjects. And that's what I want to do. I want to, in this lifetime, work on stuff, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Basically, and explore. And I feel like, yeah, we've tapped on a lot of different things, but it's fragmented, but beautiful. It's like, wow.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm really appreciative. I really
yeah.
do. And
You're
Annie is
welcome.
your daughter, right? Like, appreciative to you too. Back in the background. Thanks for letting my son come in.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you, and for trying to pull out more information and asking more and being open to changing your specificness, and just wanting to challenge and
Did I
pull
do good
through.
on that front? My homework, my challenge for myself. Did I do good with trying to come up with different opposition questions or whatnot? What is
Yeah,
my grade? My grade, my
for
report card.
for the time we did good. We
Okay.
did great, and I appreciate it. I think we should have another one
Oh yeah.
where we have notes about
Okay.
what things to dig, what challenges to go into,
And what
more
topics to stay on,
predictions,
right? With me
and,
all over
and
the
maybe
place.
different topics too. But no, I
Yeah.
don't mind. I appreciate you for having
Okay.
me. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. And you know what? I'm glad that you said yes and you're be willing, because I didn't even ask you what you think deja vu is. Remember, we were messaging about that. I was
Yeah.
trying to say, so I would love to hear how you feel about different timelines and what deja vu and what these feelings of maybe what when you are able to, oh gosh, remote viewing. I almost lost the word.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
what
Let's
you
talk
feel
about
the
that.
concepts are about,
Do
and
you
how
have
it's.
time? I got time.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. I just figured it was an hour and a half. I don't have anything going on until 9. So I have like 25 more minutes. I'm so blind I can't read. I think it's 8:36 my time. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm good
So
until 9.
okay. So
I was,
deja vu
yes.
is sometimes our message to be received. We have not been able to see. We get insights all the time, like deja vu thought processes all the time. But then in the physical, sometimes we would think we had deja vu, but it's sometimes recreating a reality or a circumstance or a pattern. Like sometimes patterns reoccur and happen, and you're like, man, I just went through this.
Yeah.
And that could be also a form of deja vu, but someone who's more in tune with what it really means won't see it as deja vu. They'll see it as, I got to break a cycle. Like,
Okay.
wow, this keeps happening, right? So deja vu to people is like seeing the same thing twice, or it depends on what do you mean deja vu
So
is, right?
so when you were a kid, I was gonna say when you were a kid, if you because when you were a kid, it may have been just something random, and you have it's the circumstance, yes, the patterns and the scenario and
Yeah.
the environment sometimes, but it's that kind of that gut eerie, I would call it, a spooky type of feeling
Yep.
where you have to stop and say, wait a second. And
Yeah.
it's just that feeling that you're kind of even unclear on what that feeling is. And so I'm just wondering, that's interesting. Could that be that, your higher self or spirit guide or something in that moment is trying to get through to you and you're feeling an unfamiliar connection maybe between the realms? I don't
Okay.
know.
I like what you're saying. Let me give you my opinion.
Okay.
Okay. It's just my perspective, is just one opinion out of so many.
I love listening to
Um, I have a YouTube video I posted about you're
Okay.
not about feelings.
Okay.
So that feeling that you think you're having, that gut feeling, how do you know it's not tampered with, right? What if you're not completely, fully holistic and healed, and you get that? That's different. That's true. Maybe it's intuitive. It's understanding more in alignment. But what if your gut is full of Burger King, KFC, McDonald's, and lust and pornography and donuts and lack of trust? Should you really trust your intuition or your deja vu gut feeling?
Okay, that makes sense. So you're saying maybe it could be an inadvertent trigger to something that you're dealing with internally and haven't healed yet that brings up that feeling and you want to maybe even suppress it or deny it, and you attribute it to a spiritual type experience. Is that what you mean? I
Yeah,
think
or
that's all.
more
Yeah.
direct is it's not pure.
Okay. Okay, there you go. Simply put, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that that comes to play in other scenarios, not just deja vu? I think that that does.
Tons.
Yeah.
Tons.
What
Like
other scenarios do you think that that would lock in with? Because
going
that's
for an interview and then leaving and then having a good feeling that you got it or didn't get it. Well, you can work with both. If you walked out of there feeling, oh, I didn't get it, well, there's things you could do to fix the feeling, and then feeling that you got it could also mean you didn't get it, right?
very
And
true.
there's work and spiritual work that you can do to really hone in on knowing the truth, if you really got it or really didn't get it. That's one example. There's so many examples with partners, with your spouse or with your kids, or with you know so many examples. It's up to you to poke and dig and challenge me, right? It's your job to do that to me. Yeah. So
I think that's beautiful you just said that because a lot of people will say not to challenge your feelings, thoughts, or intuition. I'm constantly doing that because I feel like I need to look at it over and over with a fresh pair of eyes and discernment so that I can, understand it more. And then, yes, I don't find a concrete belief, but it will get me closer to, okay, that rings true for me. And I think that it's good to dive in and explore. And some people are like, no, if you second guess it, you'll talk yourself out because of programming. I'm like, no, you're looking at it with both the beautiful feeling, but also with that knowledge, like what you said. Could it be A, B, or C? Could it be I'm hungry?
Well,
Could it be I'm
there's more
lonely?
to it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the more to it is this, is like, and then once you've healed yourself, once you've fully let go of all your blockages, you've done your inner work, your self identity, your character. A lot of these coaches, like there's this one spiritual guy that follows his intuition, and he talks about follow your intuition, but he doesn't say, well, hey, you got to deal with all of this first. I did all of this first to trust my true intuition. So if people there are binge eating and negative, and then they take this master class and then they just trust, they paid thousands of dollars to take his course, but and he's saying, trust your intuition. This is what you do. This is how you do, without, healing the inside. I have this post saying, people like to add new habits to old habits. It's never going to work. You got to heal the stuff, let go of all the old for you to come to your true essence of a spiritual being first. Then you can start really honing in and trusting your intuition. So I would say to listeners, if you're not there yet, do the work first. Don't just trust the intuition and be like, oh, I trust it. I trust it. Well, how do you know? Did you deal with your trauma? Were
yeah,
you molested? Were you raped? Did you go through bullying in school? Are those healed? No. Then how can you trust yourself if you have not even healed yourself? Your
yeah. Just
spirit is like looking at you like, come on, dude, you're fraudulent.
yeah. Like for instance, do you think people get it misconstrued between an urge? Like my emotional eating, I was fully aware of what I was doing about the death. It was an urge, but it wasn't my intuition. But it's coming from the same place. It's popping up, letting
It's
me be aware of it.
weakness. It's
Yeah.
your weakness, and
Yes.
it's a choice.
Yes,
It's
it is.
weakness, it's insecurity, it's doubt, it's not being able to stick with your guns. If you think you're hungry, you're really not hungry. If you wake up in the morning, most people wake up in the morning, they're hungry, they want to eat. You're not hungry. What if I told you you're not hungry? People are going to keep arguing about, I'm hungry, it's my tummy, my stomach, I'm hungry. What if that's just the first stage of digestion? And
Yes.
when science looks into it, they'll tell you that's your pancreas sending signals to your gut, to your brain, saying you're hungry, but it's actually tricking you. The more practice you do with intermittent fasting, the more strength you're going to build. I fast every day for 24 to 36 hours.
For 24 to 36 hours, you do?
So
Like,
sometimes I go 24 hours where I do the 24 hours, I eat at that same time, and I do just the one meal once, no snacking, that's it. Or sometimes I go beyond the 24 and I go to the 36, and then I rinse and repeat. Then the next day I go to that same hour, which is 24 hour. And then when I go, then I extend it again. I do that until it gets to the evening. So I do it for 3 days till it gets to about 8 o'clock. And then I recycle and I go back to 16 hours and I start from 2:30. And then I do 18, 20, and 24, 36.
that's beautiful consistency and discipline. What would you say to a person, I mean, who has struggled with one of the biggest shadow works is consistency. And it is these long patterns. For instance, I will go 2 years eating like just what you said, doing yoga every day, all this stuff, pride myself on all the weight I lost. And then I will knowingly, not because I'm like, oh, I need to eat. I will knowingly go, you know what? I'm upset with this, and that. So guess what? I'm going to get back into my old pattern again. And then it stays there, and now, of course, as I ascend and I'm becoming, of course, since my spiritual awakening in 2016, it's not long spurts, too long, but I'm aware that I'm doing it. I'm doing it because, and it's just part of my shadow work. What would you call a person that is well aware that they are revisiting this part of them, but they're like, oh, it's okay. Come on, you can come on to me.
I would say don't overly excite yourself, and you'd have to also add an element of sacrifice. So I would add more into your work and ask yourself, what else could be why I'm doing this? Is it because, I don't want to die? Or is it because, I want to be here to walk my kid, like to be there when he gets married? And then pick one major sacrifice and then say, if I don't do this, and if I don't get too excited, and if I don't treat myself, and if I prolong this, right, and if I keep doing it, the sacrifice is I'm not going to be there for my son. He'll either something bad's going to happen, like really pick it.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example of how dangerous I'm just calling it dangerous. It's not dangerous if you're really truly committed, because then you trust that you're going to do the sacrifice. So the sacrifice for me was, I was a chronic smoker. I used to smoke 2 packets of smokes a day, and I contracted pneumonia, and I got pneumonia not just from smoking, but from a lot of bad habits and things. It was inevitable. It was bound. Something was going to manifest, right?
Yeah.
But I said, if I don't quit smoking, my pneumonia is going to kill me. I'm going to die. I choose to die. This was after my car accident, after my near death. And I meant it to God. I said, just kill me. I'm going to die. And I meant it. You have to mean it. You have to really see it through with the existence. So when I say this, I've done it with some clients, but they really have to be ready. It could be in marriage. It could be with pregnancies. It could be with wanting to have a child. I could teach it in so many different ways with making money too. I've done it with some clients. So with this one, the sacrifice, pick something. I picked that, and I kept smoking. I ended up hospitalized and nearly dying. I had over this much capacity in my lungs, and every time I just even I could just go like this, and water would come out. I didn't even have to cough anymore. It was just I was gargling up water, like so much fluid from my lungs. So my capacity was over 50%. Over 50% of oxygen was gone. I was just slowly dying. And if it wasn't for my partner picking me up and putting me in a cold tub and then taking me to the hospital, I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have found out that I was dying. And then I just told God, okay, I'm going to quit. So it was that decision and that moment of choosing something to sacrifice with your spirit and with God. And I know it sounds petty to be like, well, choose that for your weight, but you could choose something different. You could be like, well, my son and my daughter-in-law are about to have a kid. If I don't sacrifice just the littlest thing with eating habits, maybe, you do you pick whatever, but I go through this slowly with my clients to decide what's something they're ready for. Here, I'll give you a good one. I have a guy that wasn't married. He had a girlfriend that wanted to marry him, but left him from his mother's house to go stay somewhere else. And they were living separately. He was not making money. And he, it was just like that. I did a sacrifice exercise with him. In a few weeks, she moved back in. He started making so much money he could pay for his marriage. They're married, and he has a baby now.
Wow. When you do things like that, based on like what you were saying about your pneumonia too, do you think
did all the work? I'm not taking credit for it. I'm just saying the work that I did with him, he did the work. He never needed me after that. So whatever fulfilled in his life after, good for him. But it's to credit to him because he continued his teachings and he did his work.
His sacrificial, lamb. I mean, offering. I was going to ask about that in your scenario about the time that you were actively saying to God in your pneumonia and you were still smoking. Do you think that your actions doing that had any play into shadow work or inner child work or trauma? I'll tell you why I asked this. It's because I was journaling the other day and I was kind of shocked. I said, well, wow, but I'll admit it. I wanted to talk about it on my channel anyway. Is that I realized something odd, that I may have a pattern of not caring about gaining weight because I feel like I'm sexualized when I lose weight. People don't know that I was 300 pounds when I was a teenager. You know what I mean? They it would be more of special treatment from men opening the door at the grocery store or something. And that really turned me off because I'm more of like a what's inside type of person. So I realized I have to do some work on that. And I have to deeply do some wound healing regarding that because it tied into why I think a small reason of why I will get back in that pattern. So I'm curious about your take about if you thought that you were doing that for any reason like that type of thing, that it was a wound that you didn't heal.
No. Okay. To what you're saying, I call it ownership and accountability. You could still have your confidence and your integrity. People feel energy. So just because you're a losing weight, you're not going to attract that if you heighten your awareness of strength, confidence, and self-respect and your boundaries. If people feel that energy, no matter how sexy, skinny you are, no doors will be open for you. There's people out there that are models that doors don't get open for them. It doesn't matter. It's your energy. Some people portray that energy, so it's your energy. You're still, it's that insecurity that's, and you being losing weight is attracting someone to get into bed or get in with you the wrong way. So you're attracting almost what you don't want. You attract who you are and what you don't want too.
Does that bother you at all that people do have, even in the spiritual community with coaches, they have, some people do have a preference about looks? Like, for instance, do you think you would be as successful if you grew a beard all over and was like Grizzly Adams? Do you think that looks matter? Because I tend to be one of those hippies, like, no, not at all. But then I do see what we were talking about earlier about how there isn't just one particular person you're trying to affect. You're trying to help many people who have different perspectives. So how do you feel about that? Like showing up dressed appropriately, or how the looks on the outside? Like if you were, let's say, burn victim, would you still think that you would be able to reach as many people? I know that's a funky question, but I'm curious about that.
Absolutely, you can, but it's on your level of acceptance, right? Like, are you going to embody? Like, if I shaved everything off, I would look weird. My small lips, and it would look weird, right? And it would be my own insecurity of my own attraction would be portraying. It's not their attraction, it's me. And that's what it is.
Being happy with yourself, and then that will exude and reverberate for them. Like,
yes.
Exactly. Okay. Yes. Gotcha.
Yeah. Beautiful. So it's what you can handle and tolerate, right? And what you fully accept and embrace.
So true. Because the minute that you own it, like I was saying, the minute that I was ready to be vulnerable and put out my woo-woo stuff or whatever that was kind of far-fetched in my opinion, or that my grandma might say, oh my God, as soon as you're ready to do that and you're really ready and you speak to somebody, your client, or you speak to the camera and you're like this, just comfortable, you're being yourself. It's a beautiful thing, because you find that, yes, people will then receive you in that way and may have judged you before if you kind of went on there and weren't, you were not secure, like you said, with that topic, or secure that you're just going to do this no matter what. Who cares about the repercussions of anything? You're just going to be authentic and speak your truth. So I think that is good.
Absolutely. Years ago, I didn't know what I was doing. I just woke up in the middle of the night and made my first video. And I had those insecurities. I had those doubts of judgment, what the world, what people are going to think. And then that's something I had to get over, because it's not about that. It's about you. It's about the message. It's about why are you doing it? What's the energy behind why you're doing it? Don't bring any other energy into it. Just bring your energy, get it done. That's it. Launch it. It's done. That's it. And build that confidence for your energy, right?
Yeah. Now, when you make content, do you do it on a script? Do you go basically like have a script and you know exactly what segments you're going to talk to, or do you free like, do you ad lib?
I've never been the type to have a script. Every even company, job, everywhere I've worked, I'd be the only one in a conference without a notepad and pen. And I would get belittled and be like, well, these guys are going to be successful. You're not. Well, those people that you said would be successful coming from the owner all quit. And who's number one? And it caused jealousy, inferiority, and superior, right? They would feel like, oh, well, and I would always get fired because I was always defiant. I was always proving it wrong. They said, well, why reinvent the wheel when we've invented the wheel? Just do what works. And I've always done something different to the point, so.
Yeah. And you're not doing it on purpose. That's you. You're doing it because, how do you deal with haters and jealousy? Because that we could talk at another whole podcast about, because I'm very advocate about, be your own self and F the haters, that kind of thing. How do you
give them love? Send love. First, love yourself, know that you embrace yourself, and be the bigger person to be able to forgive that person and send love, true, authentic, unconditional love, as if you really mean it and truly want them to receive it. And you visualize that they've received it and they're like looking at you like, what, me? Really? I'm belittling you?
Right? And you can see it kind of chips away. Wait. Yeah. Just like your dream. You said you hugged
Yeah.
the demonic entity, that thing, you gave it love in order to
Yeah.
soothe, you know, in order to heal that for yourself and that. So that's the
They're
topic
gonna
of the day.
break
That's the
down.
mentor of the day. The
They're
mentor.
gonna cry.
Yeah.
Those enemies that are so hard on you, when you give them love, they have never received love. They're gonna break down and hurt and cry. They're the most traumatized people out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I just spoke on that yesterday, man. And a lot of people say bullshit. They're just dicks or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? Sorry if I'm cussing. Sometimes I'm just off the cuff. But I believe that that is literally the solution. I know it's cheesy to some people to hear, but love. I love that look that you just described. They are just like shocked, as if you can see it in their eyes right then that they have not had that, and that is what led them into projecting their inner child that hasn't been healed. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. What time are we? Are we at 9 o'clock?
All right. Yeah.
Okay. How beautiful of a flow. I really do appreciate this, and I'm stoked that you said you'll come back again, because man, I'm going to be taking my notes, and it'll be a thesis to send to you to, to ask if you'll come back, because I really enjoyed myself. I really
Yeah,
did,
for
and
sure.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate all your
Appreciate
wisdom. I know everybody who will see this will too as well.
I like this. I love this. This is what it's about, right? Getting the message out there.
Yeah, and it was different. It was neat, the perspectives, and I learned a lot. And I hope you, learned from my silly perspective. And I just, yeah, I hope you have a great day. Again, I'm going to end this, but who knows if it's going to hang up on you or if we'll be there. But I'll say goodbye to everybody. Thank everybody. End of the video. I'm stoked. It's my longest video I think I've ever done. So I'm
All
I'm
right.
proud of that. Okay, bye, guys.
Bye.
See if it keeps you on. Let me see if we'll.